Without further ado, here is part 2 of our interview with Steve Ouimette.
And this was probably the hardest lesson of my life. We had everybody we could think of audition for it. And everybody sounded like a caricature of Dave. You know, because Dave has a very, very distinctive voice. I'm not even going to try to mimic it because I will sound like a caricature of it as well. And we ended up running out of time after we had 3 different versions, and they were all, I should say, compromised. And we ended up going with the best that we could. And I remember the YouTube comments on that. I think if you look it up, you could probably find the video somewhere. It was one of those, atrocities, or what did I ever do to you kind of, to have this horrible. And it was like, man, that was a rough one. However, I have an opposite story that was really funny to me. Is I was doing Round and Round for that game as well. And believe it or not, I was able to hire Stephen Piercy.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the best part about that was everyone slagged on him saying, why didn't they get someone that sounded more like Stephen Piercy? And I thought, yeah. And I'm thinking, this is why the internet sucks, right? Because it's like, no, that is him. And it didn't matter. And then let's even take it one farther. So a great friend of mine who really was the fish that saved Pittsburgh. That's an old reference to you that weren't born in that era. Brody Dolinek is probably one of the most chameleon-like amazing singers I've ever known. He's in a Zeppelin band called Zusa, Zeppelin USA, and he does covers like nobody else. And he sang on the majority of the Guitar Hero covers. And his first assignment was to do Talk Dirty to Me. Now here's a guy that lives on Elton John and Robert Plant and David Gilmour and I go, hey dude, and Klaus Meine, and
I'm gonna
hey,
hire
this song
you to
is
play Poison.
And guess what? His response or the online response was, so what? They hire some half-assed Poison cover band and have Brett sing over it. So to this day, yeah, it's Brody. That's how I start every phone call. Every rose has its thorn, Brody. It's so he's going to go down in history as the guy that is Bret Michaels, and I'm a cheap knockoff of CC DeVille. So
that's just too humorous. Oh man,
yeah.
You never know what you're going to get with the comments.
You never
know
what you're going to get.
And
no.
I can sort of relate to this because I don't know if you're familiar with the game Go Vacation, which was actually
I'm not.
It was a rather popular game.
Who is the publisher?
Namco, so Sega.
Oh, okay, yeah,
so
okay,
It was a rather popular game, and there are 10 songs on the game. And I sang on 7 of them. And occasionally I'll get emails from people saying, hey, are you the guy that sang on this game? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen.
Tentatively, yeah. What am I setting myself up for here? Yeah.
So somebody has gone to all the trouble to actually upload these to YouTube, and people were trying to figure out the lyrics. And the composer is credited as the lyricist on the game. However, it was a Japanese composer, amazing guy, Norihiko, and his English translations left a lot to be desired. So myself and the other singer,
so do my Japanese translations.
Yeah,
yeah, indeed, right? Yeah.
But myself and the other singer were left to our own devices to actually rewrite the lyrics and given the go-ahead okay for doing so. But we never got credit, and we didn't get paid for that portion of it, which is unfortunate. However, in doing so, did not keep original copies of this stuff.
Oh, okay.
So in trying to listen back and somebody asking me, like, what did you sing here? It's like, well, I don't know. It's like you go in, you're hired, you do your thing, you walk out, and you're done. And I eventually got so many requests on this that I contacted Norihiko. He had the original files that we had delivered back to him. And was able to give me the lyric files. But to listen or read comments on the YouTube thing, it's just like some of them are real complimentary and nice, and others are like, wow, can I go hide in a hole now?
I didn't have that ever, so I wouldn't know. I will say this though.
Well, but to be called a cheap knockoff of CC DeVille.
Well, I mean, I was a cheap knockoff of CC DeVille. I mean, CC DeVille is CC. That's
Sure.
what the other thing is that you cannot duplicate DNA.
No, of course.
As a guitar player, we can plug into an amp and get a tone similar. I work really, really hard to get the technique facilitated the same. But man, I have the greatest respect for singers, guys like Brody Dolinek or Mark Martel, who sound,
Just like Freddie.
That's, you're talking about, that's an uncanny kind of thing. But to be able to do that there are very, very few people on this planet that have that ability. So I'll be the first one to say it. I do these re-records, but would I rather listen to my version than the original? No. I mean, come on. Let's just say it's like Hendrix or Hendrix Light. What was it that's been going around lately? The Mel Gibson and the Mel Epiphone. Have you seen that?
No. Oh, actually, wait. I have seen that. That is funny.
The meme. It's like this guy that looks kind of like Mel Gibson, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing our best, but ain't nothing like the real thing. Sure. There's just And our brains are really, really good at being able to notice the absolute slightest deviation.
Sure.
It's amazing how good. And kids are even more brutal about it. That ain't the real thing. And you're like, yeah, I know. Man, you just killed my magic trick there. Wow.
Right, Have you ever taken something and sampled it and reused it?
Well, I can't. I mean,
well, I know you can't in terms of like when you're doing something for a game. However, I bring this up because a buddy of mine played me a song in the car once. And this is prior to the easy ability that it is now. But it's Jeff Soto. Yeah. And he had a band called Human Clay alongside when he was doing Talisman. And he played me a particular song that was a Talisman song previously. And then played this new thing in the car one day and just said, hey, what do you think of this? And I just said, did you sample your guitar part and like rewrite something over it? And he turns and he looks at me, he's like, how the fuck could you tell that?
So he reused his own material and you noticed it.
Yeah, but they repitched it.
Oh,
and
okay.
They sped it up by literally using like a tape style speed up instead of
like a very speed.
Like a very speed thing. So it would be a lot less noticeable with no artifacts on it. But I noticed that it was the same rhythm, same chord changes. And I just was like, I think that's the same part. You just sped it up.
Wow. Well,
and he was
I have never done that, but that's cool. Well, I mean, that's cool. And you have to say hi to Jeff next time you talk to him. Jeff actually sang on a few tracks for me as well.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, he did some Korn tracks and Foo Fighters for me for Rock Revolution. And,
nice.
That was awesome to be able to work with Jeff because I met him at Yngwie's house in 1985.
Woo!
When I mean, that was, and he was, he's a young guy, and I was over at Yngwie's house because I had met those guys at Day on the Green, and they said, come on over anytime. And I did. And there was Jeff, and not long after that, he was not there, and it was Mark Bowles. But I've always loved Jeff's voice, and it was really great to work with him.
Yeah, well, living with him for a while and being a guitar player who's suddenly thrust in the concept of singing made me super self-conscious of my own voice. Like you wouldn't believe.
You got a great voice.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's true. I mean, I only speak the truth here.
Well, okay. Let me give you your money after the podcast is over. I'll slip you the 100.
Wow, it's 100 now?
Yeah, so let's take it back a little bit more to the technical aspects here, if you don't mind.
No, I love it.
Now, you mentioned technique and how everybody's sort of individual,
of course,
in our playing and all this kind of stuff. So the first thing that I came to mind when you said that, again, we're both huge Kiss fans here. The things that makes Ace sound like Ace, because Ace is not a technician, at all.
Nope.
But it is very difficult to replicate some of all those little nuances that he does because he's seemingly so awkward, at least to me.
That could have been the drinking, though.
Well, no, but even early on, it might have been the drinking, but, so with the technical aspects and stuff. But what I wanted to ask as a follow-up on that, on the performance aspect of the ones when you perform. Has there been any particular player or track that you've had to record that you felt on a performance aspect that was just murderous for you? That was really
Buck Dharma.
Yeah,
Buck Dharma. It was the most difficult to do Cities on Flame because it was like this free-form stream of consciousness blues rock thing that was just not typical for my hands. And for some reason that, you think, like Dimebag Darrell or something like that. Dime was a little bit more calculated and schooled, I think. Yeah. And so it made it a little easier to not play like him, but to at least understand where he's coming from. I think the Buck Dharma thing just always struck me as being so like a rolling, rambling thing that was a one-off. And I think that's what it is. When you get into the jam style solos, they're the hardest to reproduce because they wouldn't reproduce it either. It would be different every time.
Yeah.
And pure improvisation.
I think that's really tricky. But I always reference that one because it stands out as me going, I don't think I'm going to get this. And I think it's okay. That song doesn't even sound like Blue Oyster Cult the way that we did it. And I had a great singer that didn't sound anything like, and I can't remember who the singer was on that song, but Chris Powers did the cover, and he was the same guy that sang Devil Went Down to Georgia for me. Okay. He was a great singer. He didn't sound like the Blue Oyster Cult's vocalist, but it was what it was. But yeah, Buck Dharma by far.
Okay. That would not have been my guess, but that's interesting. Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, but I think it's interesting because you think on a sort of performance level, like you said, certain players have a very distinct style for their note choices, if you will.
Yes.
And you can find a lot of repetition type of stuff in there, whether there's patterns and all this kind of stuff, or the way they articulate.
Exactly.
But then when you have stuff where, it's like, you're doing what now? And it is hard to sort of get into that mindset, I think.
It is. Yeah.
And then try to do it convincingly like you have to do in your case, it's different.
So along the lines,
go
ahead. I was going to just kind of expand upon that little part because he's asking like, what was the hardest thing? What's the hardest tone to have recreated in your past?
Ooh, good one, Jody.
Dimebags.
Dimebags.
Yeah.
Really?
Dimebags was tough because I had everything at my disposal. At the time, Dime was working, had been, he wasn't with us at this point, even at that time, but he had been working with the guys at Crank Amps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And his rig was actually there. And Crank is in Arizona here. And so I actually got to check out his rig, which was the Randall, the RG series. And it was the worst sounding thing I have ever played on in my life. And that's because my hands don't have what Dime's had.
Yeah.
And it was perfectly set up for him. So I wanted really badly to see if I could borrow the rig. Mm-hmm. That wasn't ever going to happen. So it was so scooped and so different because it's a solid state amp and in his pickups. Now I had his pickups. He had a Bill Lawrence, the 500 XL or LX. I forgot what it is. Okay. It's the Bill Lawrence Blade pickup. And I had a Dime Slime that I borrowed from somebody, which was it was a lower end one than the real Dean's. Yeah. But that was incredibly hard because he had it tuned so the pick squeals would just explode off of the strings. And I couldn't ever quite get that scoop without scooping out the harmonics that were coming out of the guitar. It was like a weird, I'm erasing what I need and yet I can't have it. And so it was painful. And I think I did
they may have
5 or 6 songs.
Do you think they may have run 2 tracks, one that's the scoop thing that you're talking about and one just to grab the harmonics?
I doubt it. I think it was just all in his hands. It's like Zakk Wylde, right? That guy and his crazy squeals with those EMGs and the EVs and all that stuff. Yeah, that was really tough.
He had, and just to kind of go off on the Zakk Wylde thing, that guy had that at probably 17.
It was already there.
I remember when I was attending Berklee College of Music.
Yep.
There was a tape because I was friends with John DeServio, who played with Zakk quite a bit. And I knew John through some people at Berklee because I was attending there roughly around the same time he was. And I somehow got my hand, I still have this cassette. In fact, I actually just digitized it last year during COVID. And It is insane to listen to John and Zach jam because his DNA of how he still plays to this day is already ingrained in that fucking cassette that I have.
And I think that's actually quite true. I think that's quite true of players. I think that if you started playing at 12 or whatever, by 17, it's there.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, those squeals and everything. It's just, it's Zach's one of those players. One note, it's Zach. It. So
I've always been curious to if he got a bunch of that from John Sykes.
It sure sounds like it, doesn't it?
Right, because he does that like nobody's business.
John Sykes is
yeah.
I covered John Sykes.
Have you ever done any of the Whitesnake stuff?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah, I did. I did Still of the Night. Brody sang, did an amazing David Coverdale.
Was it the original version or the re-record that they did with?
No, the real one, not that silly.
So you did the John Sykes version?
Yeah, I did the John Sykes version. And I got a Boogie Mark II to do it, and that was the weirdest amp I'd ever used. I found the settings online it was like a picture of John's amp, and I was able to dial it in. But man, if you bumped it, it no longer sounded anything like it. And it wasn't until 2 weeks ago that I ever had a Boogie again because of that. I just bought a Mark IV, and it's much, much easier to dial in than the 2 was for me.
Sure.
Crazy. But I guess I didn't know that all of the EQ was pre the first gain stage. I didn't know that. That's why the bass was so different, and then the graphic EQ is after the fact. I'm starting to get a little bit nerdy here.
That's awesome. That's what we love.
So, yeah. Well, speaking of that, and you're talking about Mesa Boogie, let's just kind of jump for a second. Did you ever have a Triaxis?
I never have tried a Triaxis.
Okay.
But I've seen them. I know about them. It's the little button thing.
Well, it's the rack mount version of several of your amps.
Yeah, right.
So let's take a schoolboy step back. What was your first guitar and amp?
My first guitar was a Memphis Les Paul copy. No, excuse me, Seville, not Memphis, Seville. I think there was about 1 million of them. I think it was 15 or so pieces of plywood. I walked into Mao's Music as a 12-year-old, and I had failed on drums. I was Bobby Brady, and I knew it. And so I moved over. My parents were thrilled. Let's get him a guitar. That'll be quieter. And so,
wait a minute. Did your parents know my parents or something?
Yeah, I think everybody's parents that had a drum kid knew this. So I walked into Mao's Music in Concord, California, and they had rows and rows of Gibson Les Pauls. And I wanted a Gibson Les Paul because Ace Frehley, surprise. And I ended up walking out with a wine red Les Paul copy that I'm sure set me back 3 to 5 years in learning how to play because it was set up so poorly. It was awful. And then the amp, it was from a company called Rock Amps, and it was I think it's called the Petra, and it had a distortion knob on it. So it was this cane wooden looking thing with a cane. It was like tongue and groove. I still have one. It had volume, reverb, treble, bass, and distortion. And the distortion was a fuzz, I believe it's a silicon fuzz that's built into this freaking amp. Huh. And it is, they didn't make many of these things, I don't think, but I bought one recently because I wanted nostalgia, and I found it for like $100, but it was amazing. And I built it was a 4-foot by 4-foot cabinet that I was going to plug this 10-watt amp into. It was butt jointed press board and a baffle board that had 15 speakers. It was 310s, 212s, and a bunch of mid-range tweeters from like various transistor radios and whatnot, all wired in series. So it's probably like 250 ohms, right? And I plugged a thing into it, and I had Naugahyde and Radio Shack grill cloth and these furniture rollers, and I rolled it out of my house onto the driveway, and the whole thing just kind of leaned and it sounded so incredibly bad. It just barely made a peep. There was just no volume to be had because, I was running the wrong impedance. So I ended up using one speaker at a time. I would put it into the little speakers, and I'd hit a chord, and it would light them on fire because there was way too much power. So that was my first guitar and amp. And
nice.
Yeah, I later got an SG, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, and then I moved on.
Was that a Tony Iommi thing, or was that an Angus thing?
It was an Angus thing. I got the SG. It was similar to the Firebrand SGs that they made. They were walnut, and they were very stripped down, and I love that guitar. It was not that great of a guitar, but it was such a huge step up from the Seville. It's not even funny.
You still have it?
No, I have nothing of my past. It's all been, unlike a lot of friends I have, I own none of those things. But I do have a picture of me with that guitar, so I'll have to find it because the guitar is like hanging down to my knees because I'm a little kid.
But that's interesting though, Steve, because I mean you're mentioning here that you're buying all this gear because you got to have it, but yet you don't sound like you're too precious about the gear.
No, I'm not. I have one thing that I've kept for 30 plus years now, and I bought Elliot Easton's Mutron octave divider from E. Wurlitzer Music in Boston, Massachusetts, from Stan Chang. When I was in the computer business, I bought that for $35, and I also bought his Mutron flanger for $35. I later sold the flanger for like $1,500, but I still have the Mutron, and I just had it worked on again. I use that on The Devil Went Down to Georgia. We used it on the T-Ride record, and I've used it for so many things. It's unbelievable, and I will never let that go. But I'm not really precious about anything else, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's pretty healthy, I think.
Let's take a quick break. We've been talking a lot about like your whole gaming history and where you kind of came from as a guitar player. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of the fact that you actually write some music too.
Yeah, that I do.
Not like rewriting somebody else's music, but like actually writing your own thing. Why don't we delve a little bit into that?
Well, obviously, it has been guitar-centric in what we've been talking about. But after Guitar Hero, like I said, I got into Just Dance, and that opened up a lot of doors for working with Ubisoft and Activision on other games. So I've worked on Call of Duty. I've worked on Ghost Recon. I wrote the theme for The Crew 2 from Ubisoft. Ghost Recon Wildlands was really interesting because I was writing narco corridos, which are Mexican drug lord songs. So I had a whole team of people I worked with in LA that made it sound authentic. I wrote an entire soundtrack for that game.
Did they have to go down to like the drug fields and get actual people, field hands to come play this stuff?
Well, we watched a lot of Breaking Bad.
Okay.
Yeah, that's as close as I got to it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the composing side has been really interesting because I kind of get shoehorned as a guitar player, obviously because I can't stop talking about it. I'm a total guitar nerd. I've written everything from Balkan gypsy tunes to Bollywood music. In fact, we did a session at East West back for one of the Just Dances where it was an entire Bollywood Christmas thing. And so I'm more eclectic when it comes to that. I'm certainly not an orchestral composer, even though that was what my degree was in. I just don't find myself, I can't keep up with the guys doing the Hans Zimmer style thing because that's such a saturated world. And I made a decision early on not to even bother touching that. So I kind of split my time half and half with video games and television. And you mentioned Robert Navarro. I'm now a partner of Pop Machine. I'm actually partnered with Robert.
Did he tell me that? No. Or it was with somebody else and then he took it back and then you jumped in, or?
Well, it started I guess it's about 6 months ago now, so I'm doing all the mastering.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Pop
So I'm doing the
been
mastering
for a while.
Oh yeah. I wrote one of the first library albums for Pop Machine called Highways and Byways, which was a bunch of acoustic kind of back porch Sunday drive style stuff. But yeah, now I'm actually a partner with him doing the mastering and the metadata as well as producing the albums with other artists. So that's a big chunk of time that I'm taking up now doing that.
Sure. No, that stuff is tedious work.
It is. It's fun for me to be on that side, on the mastering and metadata side, because I did that for APM for many, many years for Endgame. And then I stopped doing that. So yeah, I do music for Let's Make a Deal. I do music for Monday Night Football. In fact, I just did another theme for them for the season. and I did music for the Chicago Cubs last year, which was sad because it came right out at the time that COVID hit. And I had just done the new theme for the Cubs and everything, and they're using it, but sports last year really wasn't sports the way that it's coming back, but
slowly but surely, but it'll take some more time.
Do you find that with your, when you're composing and the fact that you've done so much, put words in your mouth there and using your saying, but you've done so much sort of like forensic work when it comes to other people's music, do you find that that has sort of like influenced your composition? Do you find that there's some cross-pollination there, or is it just like, no, that's part of that, and when I do my own thing, you kind of want to step away from that? Or
Well, I only have 64K of RAM in my head, so what happens is after I'm done, after I'm done with a project, when I'm done with a project, it empties out of my head completely. I think that it becomes part of my bigger circle as far as the knowledge that I've gotten out of that. But no, I don't think it really does influence. I think I'm in a different mindset in the forensic space that it doesn't rub off on me the same way that way. Yeah. Not compositionally. I mean, I probably do glean some things from it, but I still think my style is unaffected by that, and it's more learning whatever I'm going to have to go into, because a lot of times I'm already out of I don't really have a norm, it's always been based on whatever the needs of the company were. I don't write albums every day for myself. It's always been focused on whatever the end,
whatever the brief
end
is,
goal.
Type of thing.
Yeah. So if I get a brief, my brain just opens up and I go in that direction. And I take it the same way as I would a re-record, and I research by listening to different things, and I say, okay, well, then I add my own version of that in. So, So fortunately, it hasn't. I don't sound like Elton John. I kind of wish I did. But
well, next time you need to do that, let me know, because I know some of his current band members.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Well, I might not have said the question as I intended, but not necessarily that you would, for want of a better phrase, rip off composition-wise, but more like, has it sort of educated your mindset as far as like recording chains, or gotten an idea where it's like, oh, you know what, that's really cool on this record they did.
Oh, sure.
Like they did, they ran a plexi, but then they had this or whatever, right? So,
sure.
Ideas from that.
Yeah, everything that I learned from a re-record ends up going, it definitely comes back into my production for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't used to mix my own music, and it wasn't until we started doing after Guitar Hero, where I was forced to actually have to do my own mixes, that things really started to change. And yes, everything I learn goes back into the toolkit for whatever. And I actually think that way too. I just put a video up on Instagram today of something I played yesterday. I got this really cool, I'll show you guys. I think we talked about this, the Legendary Tones Hot
Nice.
Mod. No.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so what this is you plug it into the second preamp tube section of a Marshall, and it gives you a modified Marshall with an extra gain stage. So it's kind of like what we used to do back in the day when you'd chop up the amp and put extra tubes in and stuff. When I was using this, it's great because now I won't do that to an amp at this point in time. They're too valuable. Yeah, I thought a lot about that. How do I create this particular tone? And that came from, I was using Echo Boy because I wanted to use a stereo set of Echoplexes, and I wanted to use this 480L reverb that I had used on a guitar track from a re-record a few years ago that I thought, oh wow, this gives it this really great ambient vibe. And so yes, I absolutely learned to put those things in my productions. Yeah. I'll send you guys a link to the video because I think the tone turned out really, really cool.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. Yeah. So when it comes to reverbs and things outside of not necessarily outside of the hardware realm, but when you're not talking about hardware amps and things, do you find yourself that you hunt down like you mentioned, like a 480L, or are you using, or are you making use of like IRs and things like that at this point?
Yeah. At this point, I made a switch about 4 or 5 years ago completely away from hardware. I am 100% in the box now, aside from
Your amp heads.
Aside from my amp heads.
Yeah.
I had, the recalls were just brutal. When we were doing Guitar Hero, we had an SSL J series, and we had all the Pultecs and the 480Ls and whatnot, and it would take hours to do a recall of 6 little things they needed changed. Well, I can't do that anymore. Yeah. And honestly, yes, hardware does sound different, but I have a ton of the UA stuff, Waves, and other programs that are so close. You have to go with the flexibility and repeatability and immediacy of saying, yeah, I got 3 480Ls running. When am I going to go and have 3 of those again?
Doubt, just sitting around.
You know what I mean? And
boxes.
so, and they're getting kind of harder to maintain. So I don't miss it. I had a Bricasti, one of the greatest reverbs ever.
Yes.
And then I found the Seventh Heaven version of the Bricasti. And let me tell you, I did A/B tests. I went back and forth, and I sold my Bricasti. I will never say anything bad about the Bricasti. I will say that the Seventh Heaven saved me because now I can have 4 versions of that running, and I don't have to print. I don't have to print the take. And when you're doing stems for a game, no way do I want anything like a real-time bounce per stem per track.
Well, and
they did just a real quick, Jody, but Bricasti as well. I can't remember it was for when they did the launch of the unit, but there was several years ago that they actually released a bunch of IRs that they had done for that as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Jody, I stepped over you there. What you got?
I was in a moment of silence there.
Yeah. 64K of RAM.
Yes, exactly. No, it was
the reboot.
Right? Waiting for SessionWire to catch up. I was going to say about the 480L, I'm assuming that you're using the UA version of that plugin.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I had the Relab, which is excellent as well.
Right.
But I use, I've kind of invested pretty heavily in the UA. I've got an Octo satellite card, and I've got the X8P, and I don't run out of processing power because I do still use a ton of Waves.
Sure.
And a variety of other ones, but I do go back to the UA a lot for their emulations, which are very good.
Yeah.
Right.
It's something Jody and I have talked about a fair bit here as well, because it is very easy to get what we call like gear derangement syndrome here, where you're constantly chasing sort of like the air quote best emulation. Right. And that's, in my opinion anyway, that's always a moving target because it depends on which unit has been, thank you. And most people, not everybody obviously, but most people that end up getting the emulations have probably never worked with a hardware unit to begin with.
That's true.
So I think whether it's an exact replica of whatever it is becomes less important, and it becomes more important of how you're actually using said piece of gear.
I agree.
You can use that. So it's interesting that you mentioned, I use the UA stuff, and I'm a big Slate guy, and Jody's a UA
Slate's
guy.
Great. It's great.
But it also, it's like, for me, I feel like it wouldn't behoove me to get another emulation as well, right? Because I think it's better to really get to know the gear that you have, and whether I'm succeeding at that is arguable at this stage. But it's like, you know what, Chris, that song would sound so much better if you had a different SSL emulation. You know what I mean? So
no, a good song is a good song. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Put a mic anywhere near Paul McCartney, and it's going to be great. And it doesn't matter. Yes, the Beatles were recorded extremely well, and I'll forever be thankful that there are things that we can hear on that. But I'll tell you this: back in the day, I have to say, back in the day, get off my lawn, all those things. When we had hardware, a keyboard, a sampler, whatever it was, we had one.
Yeah.
You didn't have a lot of money to buy an H3000, and you knew that thing inside and out. Yeah. Now you go and you buy a plugin, and I guarantee you don't know it inside and out. If you have 150 or 1200 or whatever, you're using presets or you're twisting it a little bit here and there, but you are not intimately familiar. I think being familiar with your gear and getting the best out of it, that's a whole different thing, and that's called being dedicated to your art. And these days, there is no excuse. If you can't make something sound good with the tools that come with your DAW stock, then it's your fault.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not going to get saved by, it's like wine or any of those things. You get 95% of the way there. The extra 5 costs you exponentially more. And only a few of the cork sniffers are going to notice the difference.
Right.
This is almost sounding like a commercial for us on a previous episode.
Yeah. No, but I'm so happy to hear you say that, because it's something that Jody and I say a lot, right? And I think it can come across as sort of hyperbole or just arrogance, quite frankly, but it really is true.
It's really not about arrogance at all, because I don't do that well sometimes.
Well, no, but I'm saying from our perspective, it's like all the mud people can use the stock stuff, right? No, it's not about that. It's it really is. Do you know your EQ? Do you know your compressor?
That's
and
right.
then everything else is just flavors, kind of thing. Right?
And absolutely true. Okay. Absolutely true.
I got to go out on the lawn and yell at my clouds now. So yeah. So what do you say, Jody? Should we thank Steve here for being very generous with his time here and go into the last few questions here? Thank you so much, Steve. I really, really appreciate this.
Totally fun.
Well, we have 3 questions that we're going to finish up with.
We have 3 questions.
There are 3 questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to start, Jody?
Yeah. Steve?
Yes.
Name your favorite piece of gear that you absolutely cannot live without.
It's going to be the universal aux.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. It's got to be that.
Okay.
I mean, all right, I'm going to just plan B. Studio One. I mean, come on. I can't do anything without Studio One. No, it's the Mac. No, okay, all right. I'm going to just go back to the aux.
There you go.
There you go.
I love them all, but that's the answer.
All right, awesome. You'll be lost without it. Okay, so the second question that I would like to ask, what's the biggest lesson that you've ever learned in your career?
Oh, that's a great question. That you never are at your pinnacle.
Stay hungry, in other words.
Yeah, I think that no matter what things you've done, you can always do better. That's what I've learned. You might be thinking, "Wow, that was awesome," and it might be, but there's more. Human beings are incredible at being able to grow. So that's what I would say.
But wait, there's more. All right, one last question.
Okay. All right.
The advice that you universally give to others.
Do your absolute best work wherever you are, every time. And
Very
don't
good.
be a dick.
Don't be a dick. You have never stepped inside the studio I had in LA, but I actually literally had a sticker that said, "Don't be a dick" on it.
Isn't that the most universal thing? I have to say, just treat people with kindness. We have way too much of that going on in the world. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. But yes, I would say always do your best. I've got a lot of plan Bs on there. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
No, that's awesome. That is very, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Right. Man, this was fun.
Yes.
Good. Well,
we agree.
Thank you again for doing this.
Thank you very much.
I think we've laughed more today than we have in a fair bit of time. So,
well, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
It's time for Friday Finds, and we always kick it off with Chris. What do you got today, Chris?
Yes. Don't I feel important?
Yes.
I have some music this week, just like you did last week.
Yeah, mine was impromptu, though.
It's the new single with Biffy Clyro. They have a new single out called Unknown Male 01.
Mm-hmm.
And besides being a really, really cool song, the production is fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah?
It sounds really, really good. Yeah, it's produced by a guy called Adam Noble.
Well, go Adam.
Yeah, you should go check it out. It's a really, really cool song. And I think it's one of those tracks that's going to make it into my list of reference tracks for when I'm mixing.
Ooh.
Yeah, it sounds really, really good. So there you go. What about you, Jody? What do you got for us?
My Friday Find this week is Yamaha and its brand new DTX 8 and DTX 10 electronic drum sets. I guess what sets these kits apart from other electronic kits is they're using wood shells for their toms and their snare. So it's still the same concept. You've got like these rubbery cymbals and such and your Yamaha brain, but you're now playing on your mesh heads with wood shells. If that's going to make much of a difference, I'm not sure. I don't know. it would be interesting to record that with live cymbals, comparatively how I did it with V-drum kits way back in the day with just the mesh heads that you didn't have a whole lot of sound with. So yes, the Yamaha DTX series now has wood shells. Steve, can we put you on the spot? Do you got something you want to say, hey?
I got something, but it's nothing new. It's something old.
Doesn't have to be new.
You guys are seeing it right here.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. What I'm showing here is an EBO from Heat, I believe they call the company. Everyone that does not know, if you don't know, I burned out my battery. I left it on.
You cannot leave the batteries in those things.
I left it on. Okay, so an EBO is an electromechanical voice, not voice, it's an electromechanical unit that Jody and I Chris, do you have one?
I generally tend to borrow Jody's when I need
Okay.
Once every 4 years. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is infinite sustain from your guitar or bass or other instrument that uses the proper strings. It does not work on an acoustic guitar, to my knowledge. Bronze doesn't work. But anyways, it lets you sustain a single note forever and ever and ever. And the closer you get to the pickup, the louder it gets, and it picks up the harmonics of the string. It sounds kind of like feedback, used on a gazillion different tracks from a gazillion different artists, and it may be the coolest invention of all time. I literally said earlier that I had my Mutron octave divider forever. I've actually had this as long, and this is 33 years old.
Now, is that an original EBO?
Well, it's a 33-year-old EBO.
Well, okay, so yeah, okay, you're. I was wondering, yours is an EBO. I thought like for a second there you said it was like a re-release of something, but you've actually used it so much you've got the paint coming off the logo.
I have worn the paint off of. I have worn most of the white paint off of it. I've used it for so many different things, and it never ceases to amaze me.
Oh, it's a fantastic device. I've just used it the other day.
I think David Bowie's Heroes. Right?
Yes.
We could be heroes just for one day with an EBO.
Ooh, we're not going to talk that.
So now, question: have you ever attended the NAMM show?
Me?
Yeah.
I've been to every one since 1986.
So you tend to remember the old man that had the EBO.
Yeah,
booth.
of course. The guy that would do the guy that actually really nailed it.
Right.
Yes.
He's no
I
longer
actually missed a
around.
whole era. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
At least I don't think he is.
There was an offshoot that was from a company called Mutron turned into ARP, and they released this crazy thing called the Gizmotron. Has anyone ever heard of the Gizmotron?
I've heard of it.
Lowell Cream and Kevin Godley from 10cc invented, or Kevin Godley or Lowell Cream invented it, and it was 6 wheels made of rubber that would turn like your guitar into a cello-like instrument, and it was. What a mess to put that thing on an instrument, but it worked when it worked. It was brilliant. In the Light from Jimmy Page, that Led Zeppelin uses that. And they just recently, someone bought the rights to the company and rebuilt them, and I have a Gizmotron.
Nice.
So.
Cool. All right.
I talk a lot.
We're going to wrap it up here. While we've got your attention, we would like to ask that you go to our website, insidetherecordingstudio.com, and sign up for our email list. Doing so gets you weekly reminders of the most current episodes and Tuesday tips that come out. In addition to that, when you sign up, you do get some free plugin presets from Chris and I that will help make your productions a little bit better. If you are signed up on the email list, anytime we are running a contest, you are automatically entered to win. If you send us an email to goldstar, GOLDSTAR, at insidetherecordingstudio.com with the word Steve, you will get something back in your inbox that might make you laugh. And if you have a topic of suggestion for us to explain in a future episode, contact us and we'll put it into consideration for a future episode. And with that, I'll say, see you next week.